The most common example is the domicile of choice. Article 32 of the Civil Code allows people to elect a special domicile for certain matters, as long as it's done in writing. You see this all the time in contracts. Parties will agree to a specific location as their domicile just for that contract. Why? It clarifies which court will have jurisdiction if a dispute arises. The Code of Civil Procedure even states that territorial jurisdiction can be set by the parties' agreement. So, if you and I sign a contract and choose Caracas as our special domicile, any lawsuit related to that contract can be filed in Caracas, regardless of where we actually live. However, there are conditions. As we said, it must be in writing, so you can't have a special domicile for a verbal agreement. Also, you can't choose a special domicile for cases where the public prosecutor's office must be involved, or in other situations where the law expressly forbids it. A great example of a prohibition is in adhesion contracts, those take it or leave it contracts you get from big companies. The law for the defense of people's access to goods and services states that clauses setting a special domicile different from where the contract was signed or where the parties live are null and void. This protects consumers from having to travel to a distant city just to file a claim. So, what are the effects of a special domicile? The main effect is determining which court hears the case. But there are some nuances. For instance, if you're suing to nullify the entire contract, you can't rely on the special domicile clause within that same contract. That would be a contradiction. Also, unless the contract explicitly says otherwise, parties can often choose between the special domicile and their general domicile when filing a lawsuit. And finally, the chosen special domicile remains in effect for as long as necessary, unless the parties agree to change it. It's also important not to confuse a special domicile with a renunciation of domicile. This is a different concept found in the Code of Civil Procedure. Renouncing your domicile is a unilateral act where one party agrees they can be sued wherever they are found. It doesn't replace their actual domicile. It just gives the other party the flexibility to file a lawsuit in any location where the person can be physically located, bypassing the usual rules of jurisdiction. Now, let's discuss the conjugal domicile. When a couple gets married, the law needs a way to define their shared legal home base. The Civil Code says the conjugal domicile is the place where the husband and wife, by mutual agreement, have established their residence. It's their home. But what if they have to live apart, maybe for work? In that case, the law considers their last common residence as the conjugal domicile. Why does this matter? Well, the conjugal domicile determines which court has jurisdiction for marriage-related issues like divorce, legal separation, or requests to authorize acts without the other spouse's consent. It also, as we mentioned earlier, helps determine the domicile of their children. However, it's worth noting that when it comes to child protection cases, the law often prioritizes the child's habitual residence at the time of the claim, which might be different. Finally, let's clarify a few related terms that are often confused with domicile, residence, and habitation. Residence is the place where a person habitually lives. It implies a degree of permanence. While your residence and domicile are often the same place, they aren't always. The law recognizes this. In fact, if a person's domicile is unknown, their residence can be used in its place for legal purposes, like determining where to file a lawsuit or serve a summons. You are also legally required to declare your residence at the civil registry and report any changes. For minors, their residence is with the parent who has custody. Then there's habitation, also known as a dwelling or abode. This is a more temporary location where a person is staying, like a hotel room or a relative's house during a visit. It's not a momentary presence, but it lacks the stability of a residence. Habitation becomes legally important, primarily in procedural matters. For example, if a person's domicile and residence are both unknown, they can be sued in the court of their habitation. It also comes into play when someone has renounced their domicile, as they can be served legal papers wherever they are currently staying. And that wraps up our overview of legal domicile and its related concepts in Venezuelan law, from the specific rules for children to the flexibility of choosing a special domicile for contracts. Understanding these terms is essential for navigating the legal landscape. We hope this explanation was clear and helpful. Thanks for joining us at LexNova Junior Lawyers. If you found this video useful, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel for more legal insights, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.